Yo, what it do, YouTube? I'm gonna just jump straight into this one. The first real out of the PS5 and Series X generation is happening right now. If you aren't in tune, here are the facts. Gotham Knights, an open-world action-adventure game from WB Montreal based on Batman sidekicks, is dropping in less than a week now. So of course, the devs have been answering questions and dropping bits of information to keep the interest high. And they finally, on their Discord, after being asked hundreds of times, literally, answered whether or not the game would have a toggle between a performance mode and a quality mode, aka a 30 and 50 FPS switch. I'll make the answer short. They said no, and they said it was because the open world and co-op can't be run at 60 FPS. But let's talk about it. So the negative reaction to the news was basically instant, and the Discord is full of people bashing the devs over the news and saying they won't be playing. What an overreaction, right? Well, not exactly. This generation has been very generous when it comes to 60 FPS, to a high degree. Basically, every next-gen only title that has released has a performance toggle, so the first game to break the streak in any way was going to be criticized heavily for it. One of the main reasons people are confused by the lack of a toggle are the PC requirements Gotham Knights Twitter released a few days ago. The next-gen consoles meet or exceed the requirements for a minimum setting 1080p 60, and a lot of the performance modes run at 1080p on the next-gen consoles. Then there's the fact that the game was planned to be on the last-gen consoles too, and that DNA shows in the game's visuals. Half of the discourse is over the game not looking next gen. One of the loudest opinions I saw though was, how can the game be next gen when it runs at 30 FPS? And that one is a doozy to say the least. The truth is, in spite of Gotham Knights being the wrong game to kick this off, 30 FPS games were inevitable on next-gen consoles. The idea of next generation implies a generational increase in the performance of a product, and we did get that, but the advantages in performance the PS5 has over the PS4 is what is fueling pretty much all of the next generation experiences you've been getting to this point. To make it simple, I'm gonna draw some really bad looking cups. I'm choosing to draw them to make my life easier rather than Photoshop some. Sorry, I'm making this video at 1 AM. I'm using PlayStation to make all this easier because Xbox likes naming their consoles weird and PlayStation just uses numbers. This right here is the PS4 cup. This right here is the PS5 cup. It's about 2.5 times bigger than the PS4 cup. Now I'm gonna put water in both cups and fill up the PS4 cup entirely. That is the maximum of what the PS4 can achieve. But you can see the PS5 cup still has room to spare. That room to spare is where the PS5 gets you the 60 FPS, the 4K resolution, the ray tracing, the whole 9 yards. Any next gen improvement you've seen recently lives within that spare cup space, because most multiplayer games that have released have been on last gen and next gen, such as Elden Ring. But what happens when games are no longer based on the smaller PS4 cup? Well, you start to use the PS5 cup in its entirety. You start pouring in water the PS4 cup could never hope to hold and get real next-gen experiences. But you lose that spare cup space. To actually push experiences that couldn't exist on your old console, they gotta use all the power of your new console. Otherwise, you'd be getting games of the same level as your old console. Long story short, when real next-gen games start dropping, you will see 30 FPS, point blank, period. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Gotham Knights made the mistake of trying to be that guy, but it wasn't that guy because it doesn't look next gen or feel next gen. But I wouldn't be surprised if something like GTA 6 ran at 30 FPS for some next gen AI or something. All this to say, it might be time to fix your expectations for the future now, because 30 FPS is going to happen and it's not going to be a choice for us. As far as Gotham Knights is concerned, I can't make a real final opinion yet because the game isn't out yet. Game development is hard, long, and a lot of the time you get ungrateful dick eaters calling your game trash because the fish AI doesn't react to you. So no final opinion yet, but here's what I'll guess on based on old industry practices. It's pretty likely Gotham Knights is just very unoptimized, and the work that would have gone into making the game run on last gen consoles was too high or too costly. So as what was probably a publisher decision, they said forget about last gen and drop it on next gen, because it's working on there. Even if it is at 30 FPS, 30 FPS is the baseline for what's considered functional. Then they moved the release date up slightly to Friday, and the result is they couldn't work out a functioning version of the game at 60 in the time allotted, but also couldn't improve the visuals enough to at least make the game look like it should be a next-gen title. So it sits in a bad limbo. Publishers in the past have pushed out games like that before, just for them to be buggy messes, so I wouldn't put it past Warner Brothers at all. But again, this is all conjecture. I have no real idea what happened behind those closed doors. But you shouldn't blame the dev team. So often these days, dev teams just want to make a great product, and they got all this passion for what they're doing. But the publisher says jump, and the devs gotta say, you want me to do a backflip with it, boss man? And fall flat on their faces. The Gotham Knights devs look like they care about the characters and bringing to life the best version of Gotham we've seen in a video game to date. So go easy on them. I've seen way too many threats on Discord towards the dev team, and that's kind of weird. Maybe down the line we'll get a 60 FPS patch, who knows? So if you really care about 60 FPS now, maybe it's time for you to jump ship to PC and save yourself the heartache. This has been Matt Omega, peace.